So today we are unpacking a really viral new dating trend called wildflowering.
Yes, wildflowering. It sounds so poetic, right?
Boom.
But our mission today is to figure out the truth.
Exactly. We want to know, is this trend a much needed romantic revolution, or is it just a really toxic trap?
Right. So, to define it for you, this term was really popularized around springtime by dating apps like Bumble.
Yeah, there's Chantel Otten talked a lot about it. It basically means letting a romantic connection grow completely organically.
Right, like a wildflower in an open field. You just let it happen.
Exactly. So you strip away the labels, you drop the rigid timelines, and you just, well, you banish that scary what are we conversation early on.
I mean, on paper, that sounds so freeing,
Yeah.
but the sources we looked at reveal a really fierce debate about this.
They really do. Before we critique it, though, we have to understand why so many younger daters are flocking to it. Like, why are we suddenly tossing out the relationship timelines?
Well, it comes down to dating burnout. We see this with our clients all the time, right?
Oh, constantly. My heart just goes out to them.
Modern dating has become this exhausting performance. Articles talk about how dates feel like job interviews.
Yes, the mental clipboards. It is like people show up with a checklist to see if you fit a vacancy for a life partner.
Exactly. And that is so heavy. It triggers so much performance anxiety.
Yeah.
So, wildflowering offers a psychological reset. It is an antidote to that burnout.
That makes total sense. Bumble's research actually showed that spring brings this big confidence boost. People just want to prioritize fun over fear.
Right. They want to figure out what they value without a ticking clock forcing them into something. But, I mean, there's a catch.
There is always a catch. I was thinking about this, and it is kind of like the dating equivalent of throwing away the itinerary on a vacation.
That is a great analogy.
Right, like it sounds incredibly liberating to just wander a new city for a few days, but eventually the sun goes down and someone needs to book a hotel.
Exactly. You need shelter.
Yeah.
Lack of structure just is not sustainable long term.
And that leads us directly into the dark side of this trend, because sociologists are really sounding the alarm on this.
They are. This whole, natural unforced growth thing often hides chronic neglect.
It is a mask for manipulation. Dr. Allison Pugh points out these specific red flags, and this is where it gets heartbreaking for so many women.
It really is. I actually have a client from Predict My Future. Let's call her Jessica.
Hmm.
She's such a sweet, loving person. Her partner totally used this trend against her. It started with what the experts call the love bomb.
Oh, the disproportionate intensity in those first few days, it just dazzles you.
Exactly. He was completely focused on her, making her feel like this rare, organic connection was destiny. But then came the second red flag, digital coldness.
That sudden withdrawal, it is so painful.
It is devastating. One weekend, he is totally in love, and by Monday, he is just sending icy one-word text messages. Jessica's so confused.
Oh, poor Jessica. That creates so much cognitive dissonance, like your brain is just frantically trying to reconcile the warm person with the cold texts.
Right. And when Jessica finally asked him about it, he used the third red flag. Researchers call it the freedom shield.
Oh, wow, the freedom shield. That is when they claim you're being possessive, right?
Yes, he told her she was stifling their organic growth and moving too fast. He used the language of personal freedom to justify his own selfishness.
That is so toxic. It makes the woman feel like she's the crazy one for just wanting basic respect. I actually had a client, let's call her Maria, who went through something so similar.
Oh, really? What happened with Maria?
Well, her guy was a fair weather fan. He loved the wildflowering idea because it meant no labels.
Let me guess, he was only around for the fun parts.
Exactly. Maria ended up getting really sick with the flu and had a massive crisis at work all in the same week, and he just vanished.
Oh my goodness, that is so hard.
It was awful. He showed a total lack of support during her difficult times. The term wildflowering just became a convenient excuse for him to avoid basic human decency.
What is fascinating here is how these manipulators use beautiful words to dodge their moral duties. It is so unfair to the women who just want a real connection.
It really is. So we have these two extremes, right? The beautiful journey of self-discovery on one end and this calculated manipulation on the other.
Right. But what about the messy middle? What happens to the average person who just tries this in good faith?
Well, it leads to this very quiet anxiety.
Yes, because it feels so easy at first.
Yeah,
But one person starts caring more.
they always do. I had a client, let's say her name was Chloe. She actually chose to try wildflowering herself because she wanted to be the chill girl.
Oh, the pressure to be the chill girl is so real.
It is. Chloe did not want to scare this guy away, but because they had no defined baseline, she started overanalyzing everything.
Because there is no security. You start rereading every single message, trying to figure out their tone.
Exactly. She was just looking for proof that he cared. But the system was designed to lack proof. It drove her crazy.
That perfectly brings up this concept from Bruce Y. Lee in Psychology Today. He compares being on the receiving end of wildflowering to working as a temp worker.
Oh, wow. The temp worker analogy. That is brilliant.
Right, you are there, you are doing all the emotional heavy lifting, providing the support of a dedicated partner.
You are basically doing all the work of a girlfriend. You even bring donuts for the team.
Yes, but you have zero job security. You get no benefits. And eventually, you might want a full-time job with stability while the other person is just perfectly happy playing the field.
That is so agonizing. You are giving premium temporary labor, just hoping they eventually notice and offer you a real contract.
I had another client, we will call her Emma, who got stuck in exactly that waiting game. She chose wildflowering at first because she was burnt out on traditional dating.
That is completely understandable. We see so many women doing that.
We really do. But as a relationship coach, the problems ignite when one person keeps it in that let's see where it goes phase for years.
Years. Oh, my heart breaks for her.
Yes, 2 whole years. Emma was secretly waiting for clarity the entire time. She was smiling on the outside, pretending to be a wildflower. But inside, she just wanted the stability of a greenhouse.
That mismatch breeds so much resentment. You were just stuck in this anxious limbo.
Exactly. So if forcing a timeline causes burnout, but avoiding labels causes this terrible anxiety, how do we actually navigate this?
Well, the dating app blog City Love proposes a really great formula for success. It is basically spontaneity-like, that organic growth plus clear communication.
I love that. Because spontaneity minus healthy boundaries just equals a toxic situationship.
It really does. And, a really grounded perspective on this, true emotional and spiritual intimacy just cannot grow without vulnerability.
That is so true. You cannot build a real bond if you're always hiding behind the whole "I'm just going with the flow" mask.
Right. You don't need to show up to date one with a 20-question interrogation. You don't have to demand their 5-year plan before the drinks arrive.
No, that is way too much pressure.
But you do need to have honest conversations about your values. Intentional dating shapes an intentional partnership.
Yes. And I always tell my clients, setting a baseline in wildflowering doesn't look like giving an aggressive ultimatum.
Not at all. It is just small moments of honesty.
Exactly. It looks like saying, I love taking things slow, but I'm ultimately looking for a real connection. That just sets the rules of engagement.
It shows them your compass, and you really have to know your own roots before you grow.
You do. If you are a temp worker who actually wants a full-time job, you have to admit that to yourself first. You cannot cosplay as a tumbleweed if you actually need deep roots.
That is such beautiful advice. Twisting your core needs just to fit the aesthetic of a trendy dating concept is only going to break your own heart.
And you deserve so much more than that. You deserve clarity and respect.
You absolutely do. So, just to recap everything for you listening today, wildflowering is this incredibly appealing concept. It relieves the pressure cooker of modern dating.
It really does. But without radical self-awareness and mutual communication, it can so easily be weaponized.
Exactly. It can be used to avoid commitment and just leave you stranded in that anxious limbo we talked about.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering question for you to ponder.
Oh, I love this part. What is the thought for today?
Well, we are increasingly using these beautiful natural metaphors like wildflowering to describe our modern dating habits.
Right. It sounds so poetic.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, are we genuinely trying to reconnect with nature's organic pace? Or have we just invented a very polite vocabulary to disguise our growing terror of vulnerability?
Oh, wow. That is so profound. Are we just terrified of being vulnerable in this hyper-connected world?
Exactly. Are we getting closer to nature, or are we just hiding behind the leaves?
That is definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Remember, if you ever need guidance, we are always here for you at Predict My Future.
Yes. Keep growing, keep questioning, and keep advocating for your needs. We will catch you next time.